Yeah. And you've got to know like why it bugs you in the first place. If this is something you dislike, if it's something you're dissatisfied, why? Right? So the fast food example, like every time I eat Chick-fil-A or Taco Bell or whatever it is, like I got to run to the bathroom, like whatever it may be, right? Well, what is the common denominator? Like the Taco Bell and Chick-fil-A. Okay, well, why is it bad? Oh, because it's fake processed food. Okay, well, should I eat that? No, it's very simple, right? But it's hard to take that inventory because life is not about choosing between fast food. You've got people in your life, you've got, decisions to make that involve, school and debt and jobs or whatever it may be. So like sometimes it does feel bigger, it feels overwhelming, but you got to understand like it is your vehicle, like this is your thing. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fluxed podcast, and today we're going to talk about what you hate. If this is your first time listening, this is a show for creators and doers who want more and aren't going to let anyone stop them from getting it. So our show, our episodes, our tools, our guests, concepts, they're all here for you to use to maximize your results. If this is your first time listening, we also invite you to go ahead and hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or leave a review on iTunes. I'm one of your hosts, Tristan Parmley. We're produced by Benji Got Beats, and I am joined by my co-host,
Josh Matthews.
Let's get after it, man. What you hate? Why is this an important topic to talk about?
Yeah, so when we were talking about this topic, like the basis of it, we were talking about, like what we hate, like defines us. So like I was watching a video, and it's just said that simple line, like what you hate defines you. Mm-hmm. And I like instantly like just related it to, us, like, because everything that we're doing right now basically is, we're doing things now for certain reasons because of, past experiences that we've had that we did not, per se, like growing up or things that weren't in our control. Mm-hmm. So like whether it is like the podcast, our business, our personal development, all these things we are actively doing and actively trying to, actively doing to better our lives because of the past experiences that we've had and the things that we felt that we didn't like growing up, and we're changing it. So basically just like talking about that, like, and kind of just like our experiences with that and why it's important to realize and notice and be aware of those feelings that you had and make it your duty now to make a difference in your life and not experience those things again.
Right, and like the classic story, or I think the word is adage, right, is, parents want their kids to have a better life than they had, right? Mm-hmm. But it's like different for everybody. So like how are you going to right the wrongs of your past? You really can't. So you've really got to be like in control of the present. But how can you be in control of the present if you don't know what you hated in the past? Mm-hmm. So I think it's really, really important to understand you're either running from pain or toward pleasure. And for us, our initial inspiration was what we hated. It was a tremendous amount of pain. And not everybody goes through something like, like what we've been through, right? For some people, they could be like losing a dog. And because of that, the next dog that they get is going to be one of those like 15-year like living dogs, right? Or it could be something like a single parent household. It could be something like a lack of education. So they are inspired to be educated, right? It can be drawn as a source of inspiration, but it's also important to note that there's a quote by Bob Proctor: if you hate being broke more than you love being rich, which most people would say yes, then they would love that, then that's why you'll stay broke. You can't hate more than you love. So this starts as an initial tool, an initial fuel, but then it leads you into the opposite. I think it's important to like say that from the beginning, understand what you hate and try to find that, because it does define your start and it does define your beginning. And that's why like you ask anybody their story, what got you started? Well, I had this happen. And it's almost always something that they didn't want to happen. So what does it mean to you to or how do you like find like what you actually like hate? What does that actually like mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for me, I think it like first starts off with just like noticing a feeling first, like multiple times. So like for me, and the reason that I'm on like this journey is that, in the past, I felt certain feelings multiple times to the point where I noticed like, okay, I don't like this. Like I don't like having to feel this multiple times over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. So like once I went to that point of, okay, feeling that multiple times, then I start to realize, okay, and then also noticing and try to discover like what's out there that's different. So then once you find like that, for me, like once I found like there were alternatives, like, oh, this actually doesn't have to be a normal thing for me. Like this is something that I can like actually change, and there's actually better out there. So like once I like figured that out, I was like, okay, well, how do I actively go and get that? And so like for me, right, you know, growing up, there's a lot of things just like anybody else, but like for me, like once I noticed that, you know, I didn't like not having, you know, like both of my parents around, or not being able to have certain like resources, or have, you know, a true like family gathering, like when I got introduced to like entrepreneurship, you know, that's when I was like realized that, oh, I can like change this. It can start with me. Like I can start to build myself, and then eventually build my family to have something totally different. So then that way I can start the chain reaction of having that thing that's different. And I think that's like one of the reasons why I'm just like so like full hold of just like gotta stay on this journey, gotta finish this path through, because if I don't, I'm gonna go back to that alternative. And so I'm always thinking of like the positive, like, okay, the positive outcome, because like I don't like want that,
Right.
because then I'll be going against what I said.
Right. And you don't want to repeat the same wrongs because you know what that felt like. So you don't want to like put that onto somebody else, whether it be your kids or future family of any sort, and team. And like, I think it's important for everybody like listening, because I'm sure everybody has that source of like starting as like inspiration, but do not let your hate become a crutch. Like a crutch moves a weak man forward. So instead, you don't want to be stuck leaning on it and saying, well, my parents were this way, so I'm this way. And knowing that you dislike it, knowing that you hate it, right? An example, like my dad's an alcoholic, so I'm an alcoholic, right? That's what a lot of people will say. Or my parents, you know, beat me, so I beat, you know, whatever. Or nobody in my family's rich, so how can I become rich? Don't let that thing that you hate be a crutch that you lean on as an excuse, like not to do it. Instead, you want to start it off as fuel. And the reason why I say is fuel, because fuel runs out. You cannot let this like hate feeling drive you forever. It starts, and then you start to separate yourself from it. It's kind of nerdy, but it's kind of true. Liquid gas and liquid diesel, that's not really what burns. It's the gas itself, the vapor, when it separates from the liquid, right? So you got to start it off as fuel and separate yourself from that hate to keep moving. And that's something that a transition that I think both of us kind of made in 2019, where, you know, when we started off this podcast and we've got episodes in the vault, you can hear what we would talk about. And it was always about the past wrongs that had like consumed us for so long, to where now we've separated ourselves from that and said, okay, that is not me anymore. I am not that. And I'm going to go towards something better. So, and that's what I want to ask you next is like, how do you separate yourself from that past like identity to say this can start with me? How does that like happen? Because that is a literal shift in who you are, in your consciousness, to say that I am not going to repeat this because I don't like it and I don't have to. So like, how does that process begin?
Yeah. So first, I think it's just like realizing that, like, for one, that just like made you. So like for us, like I always think, like when I think of those past situations, like those things made me into who I am today, and I'm exactly where I am just because of those like different circumstances. So for one, I think it's just like embracing that, like if it didn't happen that way, like don't even look at it. Like if you're in a current situation and you're thinking about your past, like don't even look at it as like a bad thing. Like it's actually a great thing, because like we wouldn't be where we are right now if those things did not happen. We wouldn't have the certain thoughts we have right now. We wouldn't be around the certain people we are right now if we did not have those things happen. Mm-hmm. And the plus of that is like once you realize, okay, like those things are the reason why I am today, and then you like just notice that as like a positive thing, then going forward and making those changes like makes it like a lot easier like moving forward, because like you're embracing it. Like for me, when I look at those things, I'm like, man, I'm the shit, because I've been through those.
Because I've been through this.
And I'm also taking the actions necessary to get there. So like I think that's like one way to separate, because if you're looking at it like a negative, like, oh, why is shit like this? Like, why is it like this? And then you're also not taking action, then you're just like stuck.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, it's like a crutch versus fuel. Like that crutch is going to move you forward. It's like having a donut on your car, like the spare tire versus like the new thing. Like don't keep that cling to you in a bad way. Oh, I can't because of this. No, like this is a good thing. Like, oh, you made it here today, and you made it, and you're gonna be here tomorrow, despite this. Oh, you went bankrupt. Oh, you got evicted. You lost your car. Whatever it may be. Like that's just finance. It's just money. It comes and goes. It flows. You just learned how it flowed out, and that means you got to get the opposite. It's gonna flow back in. That's how the world works. That's how reciprocity works. So like you have to start there. That's where I would say. And also understand that it's going to take some tries to find the dissatisfaction. One of my favorite quotes is that dissatisfaction is a creative trait. When you are extremely dissatisfied, you will find ways to be better and get better. Now, that is not, I'm not saying sad or depressed or, like in a rut, right? Dissatisfaction and being unhappy are not the same thing. They're not. I can be happy with the result and dissatisfied at the same time. Like an example would be in sports, for example. When you play your role, you score 50 points, but your team loses by 1 still. You quite literally did everything that you can do, but you're dissatisfied and you're going to keep digging and digging and digging. An example like Kobe Bryant's story, it's very vocal on, his experience of trying to be the greatest and then becoming the greatest through dissatisfaction. So I think it's important to first separate yourself starting there, embrace it knowing it made you, it's fuel, and then to understand that you're going to need to find that true dissatisfaction because that's when you can start to take action. And most people don't really know what they dislike enough. So start to become aware, start to take notes, start to take, inventory of your emotions on a daily basis of what you do like and don't like. An example would be like eating fast food, right? Like you never eat fast food. And for plenty of reasons, it's not good food. But then when you understand what you dislike, you can start to go chase the opposite. And that's what we mean by fuel, not like a crutch. You understand, okay, this made me feel this way. This made me do this. And now I'm going to embrace the opposite and keep that goal in mind. So for you, I guess a question that would stem from that is like, when did you really see that the opposite was possible? Like when did you first feel the opposite feelings, right? So as a kid, maybe you feel alone. When did you first feel, together? If you are in sports and you lost, when did you first feel a win to know that that's what I'm going for? When did that transition start to happen for you?
I think honestly, when I was just able to make my own decisions, make my own money, like when I was just able to just like fully like take control. So I guess when I was like towards the end of like high school, that's when I just started like realizing that, okay, I can actually like change things. Obviously, when you get to that age, you're just like becoming more into an adult. You're getting allowed to like make your own decisions and whatnot. So like, it literally happened. Like once I got introduced to personal development and just a different type of mindset, once I seen it and seen other people were doing it, I was like, oh, now I can like change my situation. The things that I did not like, I can quite literally reverse it and go in the opposite direction and not like steer away from it. So, because like I say, it's like that fuel. It's the thing that was just like, it's inside of you. You've experienced it. You remember those feelings. So now, especially when you have something to actively try to change it and something to like literally a vehicle to hop into and drive it, like that's when things just like start turning around and life just starts like getting better, I guess, in terms of like growth and realizing that you don't have to go through those things again. So like for me, it was literally once I just found out what was on the other side of what I didn't like, and I was able to like actually make my own decisions and stand on my decisions and just go with it. Like,
yeah, and there's a difference between knowing that it's possible and then knowing that it's possible for you, right? So like a good example that I would think of is like you play travel baseball. So you were around very wealthy kids. Like didn't one of your friends have like a baseball field?
Yeah, he had a baseball field with like a brick backstop in his backyard, basketball court in his crib. Like
crazy. See, that's incredible. I'd never seen anything like that, like ever in my life, ever. But when I would go to California, it was so much different than French Lick, Indiana. You know what I mean? I go from graduating a school where I graduated with 59 kids to like Los Angeles, essentially. So like I was exposed to the fact, oh, the world is bigger than this place, but I didn't know that things were just possible for me until the same thing. I started making decisions like out of no, like, I guess like hopes or desires, like just knowing like, oh, this is better than what I've got right now. So I got to go with the flow. And it started for me, like just with the decision to go to college. I had no reason to go to college. I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I wanted to run track. And I was like, well, I like this. So I'm going to chase whatever allows me to keep doing this. And I think that that's important is if you found something that you like, trying to stay in the lane of doing what you like right now so you can keep going for it. Now, it doesn't get easy though. Just because you make the decision of like, oh, my life's going to be different, it's not any easier. You might go through a lot worse. You're going to go, I wouldn't even call it worse. You're going to have a hard time finding guidance from the people around you because you're choosing a different lifestyle than they have. And because of that, you're going to feel alone. You're going to feel like you're the only one with these problems, us in business. You're going to feel like you don't have anybody who can actually help you out. And they don't know if they can help you either. But what's crazy is they're going to start dipping in and trying to help, and that's when you get those like negative opinions and stuff like that. So I think it's important to like assess where you're at in that and see like, where do I want to go, you know, and see that difference. Because for you, like, yeah, you were around that. I'd never seen that, but there's still a switch flip. There's a difference between you being around it and then the day where you're like, oh, I can have that too.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a big change.
Yeah. And I just thought what was funny. It's just like seeing those type of things. So like going to a big crib, and then when I go home, I got to go back to a small like apartment. So it's just like, damn, like it's just like a switch.
Yeah, why can't I have that?
Yeah, it's like damn, y'all living like this, and then I go back to Indiana. So going out, a lot of the people I play with like live in north of Indianapolis, like that's like a wealthier area, and then I got to go back to like central Indianapolis. It's just completely different.
Yeah.
So just like seeing those like two different spectrums. But it's that fuel, like when you like remembering, and like Tristan said, it's not like harping on that feeling of like what you hate because you just attract more, but it's just more so like having that feeling and realizing and observing what it is and then doing something different about it, and not just realizing what the feeling is and not doing anything at all. Because when you don't do anything at all, now you're just sitting idle, thinking about it, taking no action, and attracting more of that.
Right, exactly.
Instead of realizing the feeling and taking action to do something different about it. And that's a clear like separation between people who are stuck and people who are moving forward.
Yeah. And you've got to know like why it bugs you in the first place. Like if this is something you dislike, if it's something you're dissatisfied, why? Right? So the fast food example, like every time I eat Chick-fil-A or Taco Bell or whatever it is, like I got to run to the bathroom, like whatever it may be, right? Well, what is the common denominator? Like the Taco Bell and Chick-fil-A. Okay, well, why is it bad? Oh, because it's fake processed food. Okay, well, should I eat that? No, it's very simple, right? But it's hard to take that inventory because life is not about choosing between fast food. You've got people in your life. You've got, decisions to make that involve, school and debt and jobs or whatever it may be. So like sometimes it does feel bigger. It feels overwhelming, but you got to understand like it is your vehicle. Like this is your thing. And you can put yourself in the position to evaluate if the thing that's bothering you is worth it to use as fuel or if you just need to like let it go. But I think one thing is important is like not to ask other people if it's okay that this bothers you. Like if you're dissatisfied, you find the fix. Like, and don't ask other people. Like I personally don't like to do it very often is to say like, am I crazy? Should I feel this way or whatever? It's like, no, take personal inventory and keep it that way. Cause that's where your emotional awareness is going to come from unless the person you're asking has been through what you're going through right now. So for us in business, we'll talk to each other about business because we're going through it, but like we can't go to certain people in our family or friends and ask them about these problems because what's going to happen is we're going to start venting. We're just going to start wallowing in the problem. But if we had a mentor, we could because we know it's going to get us the next step, right? So I think that that's important, like not to ask others if it's okay that this bothers you. And an example is like what you were said about the house is like you'd go from baseball field in the backyard, like like they're not missing a meal to like, dang, I'm literally I don't know if we're gonna have dinner tonight. You know what I mean? Like that I remember that as a kid for myself. I remember there was a couple kids in town whose parents were like well off. I didn't know what that really meant other than their cars were always new. They were always on time to pick them up. Every time they picked them up, they always had food. Like, and I was like, hungry. Like, and there's like no offense to my mom or grandpa or anybody who was like helping me to, they were doing the best they could. But I remember asking, because I knew that these parents that were well off, they were like divorced and then married. So like their kids were like step siblings and whatnot, but they were all in the same age. And I remember asking my mom, like, why can't you just marry somebody like that? Like, I remember telling her that as a kid. I was in like 4th grade. And she was like, well, do you want that kind of money? Do you want all this stuff? And I was like, yes, yes, I do. Like, I was in 4th grade. I remember that like first like argument with my mom about money because I was like, they always have new clothes and they always have food and they're always on time and they're all, because they weren't working extra jobs. They didn't have to be late, So I just think that like, that's part of my inspiration. And I never asked anybody if when I was a kid or anybody else, like, should I feel this way? Like, I knew that there was better out there. I knew that I could have it. I just didn't know how. And I think that that's when taking action, like, makes the transition. It's like, you're not going to know how. You're going to chase the opposite. So, like, what do you do? Because I think we're both on the same page. We don't always know how. So what do you do to still make sure you're taking the next steps forward, to make sure you're not going at least backwards? Because we don't always know how we're going to get to where we're going, but we always know we're moving forward. So what are you using to keep that in the front of your mind, to keep what you love instead of what you hate in front of your mind, and chasing that feeling that you're after instead of burying the other?
Yeah, well, I think it's like what you said, like just like doing anything to like move forward. So it's like whatever like feels good, whatever makes you feel good in terms of like progress, like for yourself, like you just got to keep doing it. Because like for me, right, so if I keep on my mind that obviously what's in the back of my mind is like I don't like want this situation. So if I'm not doing what I need to do to move forward, I start to like feel bad, and I realize that if I don't at least do some type of actions, I'm going to get the same of what I was getting growing up. So I just think it's like literally just like doing anything possible to move forward, even if it's something small, regardless, like as long as you're just like taking a step forward, taking some type of action, whatever that action may be, just taking some type of action to like go forward and growing. Like, because if, like you said, if you're not growing, you're dying. So like any type of way to just grow, like you can't, there's no way that, you won't be well off on the journey or in the process to get to where you want to be.
There's only one way. You have to do it.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. There's
like
no secret recipe.
It's the only option. Like, for us, like the only option is to keep doing what we're doing. Like, there's literally no retreat from that.
The ships are burnt.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that, like, for those of you listening out there and you're like trying to find the thing that dissatisfies you or the thing that you hate or that inspiration or whatever it may be for you, understand, like, it made you who you are, and that's okay, because now you have a different tool set that nobody else has. Like, Josh and I know that we're going to get there because we don't know anybody who's been through the same stuff as us. But we know that if we tell our story, and when we tell it one-on-one, people are like, "Oh my God, how are you here?" Now, but there's people who have it way worse, and they're very vocal about their story. So understand that it made you who you are now. It could have been worse, and now you get the chance to do better. And then separate yourself from that hate. Don't use it as a crutch. Use it as fuel, and understand that if it bothers you enough, you have the chance to do something different, and you can take any action. And I think a good path to go is, why I think Grant Cardone says is that 10X action. If you think that you don't like the pen you're writing with, don't just get one better pen. Go buy 10. You're having abundance of them. It's going to cost you like $5, and you're going to be so happy about it, right? If you want to make a certain amount of money, try to make 10 times that amount of money. If you want a certain type of relationship, try to multiply and amplify that relationship times 10. Like, Josh and I's partnership is not a partnership because we said, hey, we're going to start this business and we'll talk about the business one day a week. Like, no, we jumped off like the porch and did everything together. Like, we see each other every day. We talk every single day. We're always on the whiteboard. We're always moving forward. Like, we're all in. We both have 10 times what's expected of us to be in for this thing to work. Same thing for the show. So I think, like, once you get through all that, guys, Just start taking the steps and then try to figure out how you can amplify those steps, because you're going to start running towards the things that you love and far, far away from the things that you hate. And I know for a fact I'm not repeating the cycle that happened to me. So really, for everybody listening out there, you got to decide if you're going to do the same. You got anything?
No, just, I mean, I don't want to harp on again. Just like decide, like, figure out, feel, and do something about it. Like, let it define you in a positive way.
Boom.
Not a negative.
Boom. Hated to make it. Guys, thank you for tuning in to this episode. Go ahead and give us a follow at MindFluxed, MindFluxed. Hate it to make it. You got to understand that this is an important concept because it has brought you to where you are now, and it's going to be the jump start to get you where you're going. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe. And if you're listening on iTunes, based on the value you got from this episode, go ahead and leave a review. I'm one of your hosts. You can find me at Tristan is Thinking. You can find our producer, Benji Got Beats, at Benji Got Beats. Where can they find you, Josh?
On IG at I am Josh Matthews.
And new episodes come out every single Monday. We do Million Monday. We're starting to give away products, gear, access, and a lot more. So go ahead and use the hashtag Million Monday and tag at MindFluxed when you hear this or another episode on a Monday. Let us know your favorite part. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace.